welcome to Trinity Talk Live, water cooler conversation from a Christian perspective. We're back, baby. What you guys don't realize out there is not only has it been 2-3 weeks, I can't remember, since the last episode aired. And technically speaking, this is now Greg's third episode in a row that he's been on. But the little secret, the not so well kept secret, is that those 2 episodes that we did before Christmas, the 2 Christmas specials, were shot in October. So, I mean, everybody had, pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns out, and we were like trying to get bundled up for Christmas to pretend it was Christmas in October. Anyway, so we haven't actually shot an episode of Trinity Talk Live since the first week of December. So it's been over a month, and I'm just thrilled to be back with the format, the usual talk show format here, and thrilled to have 2 people that have been here before, so that, if we screw things up royally because it's been so long, hopefully they can pick up pick up the ball and just carry it into the end zone for me. So I do have a couple things I want to mention real quick before we get started today, other than the stuff I've already mentioned. I want to give a very special shout out to my parents. My parents are Peter and Nancy Coughlan. They live in Fairfax, Virginia, and here's why we're going to give them a shout out. Not only did they supply me, a few episodes ago, we talked about our family tradition of putting babies on a pig tray, and my dad gave me the picture of me as a baby on a pig tray. But we now have 4 cameras to shoot with, and this is so awesome. For those of you that maybe paid close attention to previous episodes, you've probably heard me mention quite a bit about, I'm going to start talking to you over here because you're the one my wife has the camera on. It's because we've always had, there's 3 cameras to shoot. The church has 2 cameras, and they're both right in front of us. There's my close-up and the wide shot. And we have a DSLR camera. For those of you that don't know, a DSLR is basically a still camera, but it has a lot of video capabilities. But it has some disadvantages to it. One thing is that because it's primarily a still camera, it only shoots video for like 12 minutes at a time and then automatically stops. So number one, my wife is still behind the DSLR camera because she has to start it whenever it stops. But she also used to have to, carry it back and forth whenever somebody new was talking. We don't have to do that anymore because my parents bought us a new video camera, an actual video camera, a Canon video camera. And so it's Greg's close-up here. We're going to zoom in on Greg or not zoom in, but here's Greg. Hopefully that worked. When I said that, you actually got a close-up of Greg, that means we have successfully managed to get the new camera to work. If you didn't see a close-up of Greg and it stayed on the wide shot,
means I broke the camera.
That means Greg broke the camera. No, excuse me. That means it didn't work. Excuse me, coughing here. So thank you very much, my mom and dad, for giving us that camera. It's going to make my wife's job a whole heck of a lot easier and give me more angles to work with on editing, so we really, really appreciate it. The other thing I want to talk about is last week we did start a new program here on the Trinity Joppa YouTube channel called Trinity Talk Devotions. And I want to draw people's attention to it so you can check it out on the channel. This show is, I guess you might call it the flagship show. I don't know. This is really cool. This is like a nice 30-minute talk show program. But inevitably what that means is you have to have 30 minutes to devote to sitting down to watching it, or at least, in a series. Maybe watch the first 10 minutes now, another 10 minutes later. Obviously, there's a lot of people that you don't necessarily always have 30 minutes to devote. And so what we decided to do is a weekly devotional program that's like 5 minutes or less. And it is just kind of like, the devotionals you might read, except it's on video. And a series of people from the Trinity ministry staff, myself included, are going to be doing it every week. Terri doesn't know. She hasn't been asked yet, but she said she could tell she's thinking, when's he going to ask me? I know he's going to have me do one. But we're going to be doing every week, and that goes on the YouTube channel Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. And the reason it's 7 a.m. is because a lot of people wake up early, and the first thing you want to do is you want to do your devotion. So we want to have that available for you early in the morning. Now, not everybody wakes up as early as Greg does. And you might want to know, how on earth does Ken know what time Greg is doing his morning devotions? It's because we recently did a Bible study together through the Bible Gateway app, or the Bible app.
Yep.
And, it's one of these things where, it's really cool because you can all comment together and get feedback. Well, I would wake up first thing in the morning, and one of the notifications already on my phone is Greg commented on today's passage. But what time is Greg waking up in the morning? So I know you're an early riser.
Yep.
And the last thing I'm going to mention is, if you haven't been able to tell already, is I've recently had the flu. And I'm fine now, but my voice has not recovered yet, and it's already starting to go out on me. So these 2 have agreed to do all the talking today, right? No, so I apologize. I'm going to sound a little raspy, a little bit like a frog here today, probably from time to time. I'll try to rest it as much as I can, but sometimes I just can't shut up. So anyway, so that's our kind of introductory notes. Let me introduce the panel. They've both been on the show before. You probably know who they are, but we're going to introduce them anyway. Seated over here to my left is Greg Derwart. Greg is the managing director at the Maryland Department of Commerce. He's also heading up the Governor's Customer Service Initiative. His wife is Kelly, and I've always joked around that on Trinity Talk Live, we try to work our way through families. I got Kelly booked.
Yep,
I got Kelly booked. She's the only one of his family that hasn't been on the show yet.
Right.
She's going to be on next month, so we're really, really excited about that. I completely lost my place. He's a Navy brat. No, wait, that's you. He also has two daughters who were also on the Christmas specials. You saw them both there. And they all came to Trinity here in 2010. He plays the bass in the contemporary worship team. I encourage you all, once it's up, to check out the video of today's worship service. Not today. Okay, I just blew that surprise. We're filming on Sunday. Of this past Sunday's worship service.
I'll be wearing the same sweater.
The same sweater, that's true. And you can check out his new acts because
right.
it's really, he showed me afterwards.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Where the heck? He's a deacon, and he's in the Passion Play every year. We give him a new role every year, it seems like, and he's going to be playing a new one again this year. So fun. Palm Sunday, Good Friday, you got to come up and see the Passion Play. It's going to be awesome this year. He's also the chair of the call committee here at Trinity. So after that long introduction, welcome back, Greg.
Thanks.
And over here is Terri Reardon. Terri oversees the fellowship board here at Trinity. She is the staff support for our food closet and the volunteer coordinator. She is a Navy brat who settled in Maryland as a teenager, spent 24 years running a successful direct sales business. She has two daughters and a grandson, joined Trinity in 2008 and started working here 3 years later. That would be 2011 by my math, which
That's
means
right.
You're coming up on 7 years this year and you're still working here. There must be something going on that's right here, right? So if I keep putting her on camera, though, she might quit.
Yeah.
So, all right, welcome, Terri. Thank you very much for coming back, Terri.
My pleasure.
We are going to start now, finally, with our current events segment. What do you say? I decided to do something feel good today. I'll talk a little bit at the end of the show about what we have coming up. Our next two episodes are a little more serious and down to earth, I guess, episodes you might say. So I decided to kind of try to keep it light for this one. So I kind of three semi-lighthearted stories here, hopefully, for you today. The first one involves comedian and actor Russell Brand. He's faced a number of addictions in his life, including hard drugs, alcohol, fame, and even bulimia. But after struggling for over a decade, he found healing through a 12-step program that's based on Christian principles. He just released a new book, which is titled Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions. In it, he credits the program for saving his life, and he says accepting Jesus into your heart is essential. He says, if we don't welcome Jesus into our heart, then who is he? Russell explained, he's just a sort of scriptural rock star, just an icon. Unless Christ is right here, right now, in your heart, in your consciousness, then what is Christ? So our second story today deals with Carson Wentz. He's the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is not shy about proclaiming his faith in Jesus. As a matter of fact, he has a tattoo on his right wrist that says AO1, which stands for Audience of One. And he has it there to remind him that he lives for an audience of one, and that audience is Jesus. This past year, in 2017, he started the AO1 Foundation, which is a charity that states its goal is to demonstrate the love of God by providing opportunities and support for the less fortunate and those in need. On their actual website, they break that down a little more specifically, and so they have three specific objectives. The first one is to care for and provide food, shelter, and educational opportunities for underprivileged youth living in the United States and abroad. Number two is to provide hunting and outdoor opportunities for individuals with life-threatening illness, physical challenges, the underserved, or United States veterans. And the third one is to support the development of individuals by providing service dogs to help increase their quality of life. Final story for today. 25-year-old Selena Gomez recently revealed that she used to think that fame would provide her with what she needed, but that turned out to be a false hope. This is a quote from Ms. Gomez. She said, "You will feel like the loud screams from thousands of people while you're on stage will be the thing that saves you, but it isn't. I was depressed, anxious. I started to have panic attacks right before getting on stage or right after leaving the stage. But on her 23rd birthday, she finally gave herself to God. Gomez described what she heard from the Holy Spirit. And again, this is quoting her. She said, Selena, you are enough, not because you tried hard, not because you have loved hard or put on your best face, not because you've been given a large platform, and not because others tell you you are enough. You are enough because you are a child of God who has been pursued from the very beginning. You are enough because his grace has saved you and covered you, and every good thing you do will flow from this truth. What you give to others will always be an overflow of what he has given to you. Selena, you don't have to try so hard. You can rest. So those are our 3 stories for the day. We're going to start over here. Let's see, now that we have 2 cameras, I can pick whoever I want to go first. And Terri seemed really terrified when we thought she was going to go first. So we're going to field it over here to Greg and say, Greg, what stood out to you in those 3 stories?
The second story specifically stood out to me, the quarterback from Philadelphia, specifically because of all the issues that the NFL has been going through this year, with players protesting and kneeling during the national anthem. It's heartening to see a player doing something about the ills of this world and putting his money where his mouth is and just being proactive and helping the community in that way instead of just kneeling for kneeling's sake. And
he's very outspoken about it. I mean, he's not. It's very refreshing. It's one thing to. And I don't want to diminish it, when you're kind of doing something behind the scenes, it's good. And there's a time and a place for that. I don't want to, Jesus, we have the priest saying, well, thank you, God, the story about the priest who's sitting up there, speaking loudly for everybody to hear, at least I don't do this, and I'm not like this guy, So I'm not saying that, all of our works need to be public, be made public for our sake, but the gospel needs to be spread, and you spread that. Evangelizing. Yeah. And so it's really neat to see someone who realizes I'm in this position, a public position, people see me, and so to quote Uncle Ben in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. But he's using his position to help evangelize. I think that's great. Right. So Terri, what stood out to you?
Well, that story also, because it's so people-driven. Everyone in the world, everywhere we are, all just really trying to live a good life, a better life. And we're all at different places at it. We all maybe go about it different ways. But whether you consider someone a nice person, a good person, or a grumpy person, or not a nice person, in their own way, I'm sure they're trying to do their best. So when you have someone in his position that can reach out and help people and evangelize, show Christ's love in a real meaningful way that affects them where they are, I just think that's amazing. And what I really love is his tattoo of Audience of One, because we are going to be, our subject today, what we're talking about, that's exactly how I stay on top of my goals, not with the tattoo.
Finding out something new about Terri today.
when my children watch this. But it's a good reminder. And so I love that. And with the story of Selena Gomez, where she was looking out there for it, and he knows where to find it. If she had something like that, a tool, like he uses his tattoo as a tool, as a reminder, then maybe that's something that she could have reflected on to help her, through her career. Yeah. So I like the idea of that, of the tattoo.
I also don't do tattoos, but I do rings, and I have a ring on my right hand that it says "Man of God" on one side, and 1 Timothy 6:11, which is the scripture that talks about what the attributes of a man of God are supposed to be. And that's the same kind of principle. I wear that wherever I go.
A
little reminder what I'm.
We all need a little reminder sometimes how we should be.
But I'm not one for needles. So the ring will do. Thank you very much. All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Why don't we go ahead and we'll jump into our topic of the week, shall we? Our topic of the week this week is making your New Year's resolution a birthday gift for Jesus. This time of year, I know some churches this week, some churches, the church I used to go to years ago would do it last week. In this case here at Trinity, we had something during Advent. But it's the season of the Epiphany, and we're talking about the wise men coming to visit Jesus. I will tell you from a scriptural standpoint, probably a good amount of time after Jesus was born. So I hate to blow the image of nativity. Even like this, we got the wise men here, right? Yeah. No. You read the scripture. It says when the wise men came to the house, not the stable. All right. So it's unclear exactly how long after Jesus was born, but it was not that first night. Also, contrary to that movie that just came out that we just reviewed, The Star, right? Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie review, check it out on the Trinity Talk YouTube channel. Mary Kay and I did a movie review of the movie The Star. Also showed the wise men there together at the end. Anyway. So that's kind of led to the inspiration for this. What we want to talk about today is a lot of people this time of year are making New Year's resolutions. Well, it seems like an opportunity. We celebrate Jesus' birthday at Christmas. Here we are making New Year's resolutions. So how about giving a gift to Jesus? And maybe if you're going to make a resolution, maybe we can use that as our opportunity to give something to Christ. So that was the inspiration for it. I did want to talk about, there was a new Marist poll that came out recently, and that found that being a better person is actually the most popular New Year's resolution for 2018. It's tied for number one with, you could probably guess, losing weight, something that I resolve to do about every other year, and about every other year succeed, and then don't the following year. Last year, the number one New Year's resolution was also becoming a better person. And last year, it actually edged out losing weight and exercising more a little bit. So the question then becomes, obviously, well, how do you do that? How do you become a better person or even become a good person? Some other statistics, explored that, and they said most Americans will tell you that belief in God is not a prerequisite to one's goodness. In fact, according to a new Pew Research study, most U.S. adults, 56%, now say it is not necessary to believe in God to be moral and to have good values. Even among religiously affiliated adults, the share who say belief in God is unnecessary for morality grew from 42% in 2011 to 45% in 2017. Now, the reason I wanted to mention that real quick, I'm going to put my apologist hat on for a second, is I agree. Okay, and I direct, again, people, I gave a sermon back in October, and it was called Nowhere to Run To, I believe is what it was called. It was on Jonah, and you can find it on the Trinity Talk channel under I want to say it's called the Weekly Message playlist, but I'm actually thinking about changing the name of that. So if you go on it today, it's called the Weekly Message. A week from now, it might be called something different, but it's the one with all the different sermons on them. As part of that, I did explain what Christian theologians really mean. And I want to make sure we're clear that Christian theologians don't say that in order to commit a moral act, in order to do a good thing, you have to believe in God. Because the Bible does teach us, as Greg and I were talking about beforehand here, that the law is written on our hearts. That's why people all kind of have an understanding that there is such a thing as a right and a wrong out there. But what Christian theologians and apologists actually say is that God, in order for this whole idea of morality to even exist, in order for there to even be such a thing as right and wrong, for you to have an opinion about, there has to be God in order for those terms, those categories to even make sense. I'm not going to go into any more detail here, but other than just to correct that. So if you're going around saying that, no, you have to believe in God to be a good person, that's not actually wherever you heard that from, if you heard it in some sermon or some lecture somewhere, you should go back and listen to it more carefully. That's probably not what the point was. The point more was that in order for there to be such a thing as good and evil, there has to be a God to give those terms meaning. So a small point, but that still leaves us with this dilemma of, a lot of people out there want to be a good person. How do they go about doing that? So what I want to open the floor to now is, what kind of things could we be resolving to do this time of year that could be a birthday gift for Christ, that could be focusing in the new year on Jesus? And then once we get through that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we go about doing that. All right, and no pressure, but we're already way behind time. So, who wants to? Don't look at your watch. Don't look at your watch. Who wants to go first? Somebody start talking.
Ladies first.
I can go first. I think a good place to start is obviously with your own relationship with God, so that you're in the right frame of mind to what I think is serve one another. Jesus' whole walk was about worshiping God, God's rules, and helping one another through their life and so that they can know God in Jesus Christ. So I think that's the first thing to do, is to look out there and see how you can help others. And there's so many ways to do it. privately in your own home, like you talked about behind the scenes. There's out in front of people. There's simple things. There's grand things. But anytime, I believe as well, when you want to get out of your own way, sometimes we get a lot of self-serving when life is hitting you hard or you have just a lot of chaos in your own life, and that's where we tend to focus, and the best way to get out of that is to help someone else as well. And I just think that's a great way to start the new year and a great way to look at resolutions and things like that.
Let me ask you a question, Terri, because you're the volunteer coordinator here at Trinity, and I don't know how your experience is, but first of all, do you ever find it almost like when people aren't volunteering here and they're doing their first serve, and you can talk about what that is if you want a little bit, that it's almost like, they're hesitant to get involved, but then the reaction is very different once they actually start serving.
Yeah.
What have you found in that regard?
That's a big thing. So there are people who, let's just say if you're a natural leader, they can take that skill and talent and use it in the church. Maybe they're that way in their job, maybe they're that way at home, and then you have other people who may be a little more shy and reserved, so they don't want to commit, they don't want to get involved, they're not sure what that's going to mean. Is it going to pull them out of their comfort zone? And that's why we have first serves or just anything here at Trinity. I'm all about just try it. You can say, I want to be a worship assistant, I want to read the scripture, I want to walk with the cross, and I want to do all this and do it once and say, Terri, I don't like it. Totally out of my comfort zone. I don't like everyone looking at me, because you are the center of attention in that position. But yes, when you serve, it's so not what you're thinking. Anything, the anticipation is a lot worse than the actual act of almost anything in life. And if you just give it a try, you'll make a new friend, you'll realize you've lived through it, and you'll look back like, oh my gosh, why did I dream that up so big? I mean, we talked before, I'd never served communion, working here 7 years, never served, and I found myself in a last minute up here serving communion, and again, I was petrified, but it was fine, and I could do it again,
Well, that's what I think. I mean, Ben Lander, our lay minister, gave a message on New Year's Eve, where he talked about some of the statistics about like only 8% of people actually keep their New Year's resolutions by the year end or something like that. And I think that anybody out there, I guarantee you there's opportunities in your home church. If you're watching this and you're coming to Trinity, I know, call Terri, because I know there's things. Matter of fact, we need more people on the video ministry. So if you know how to push a button, you can contact me. So there's always opportunities out there to serve. That's a way of making some kind of resolution to your local church that's serving Jesus. And I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, what a lot of times you're going to find is that's going to end up being an easier resolution to keep.
It is so much easier, and you're going to feel good about it.
That's my point. So you're going to want to keep doing it, because you're going to find so much more joy out of it than other things. So Greg, what about you? What kind of things could we be doing this time of year?
Well, we were talking about resources that I've used over the years, and I'll say that I've had a pretty detailed process of goal planning for over 25 years, and I'll admit that it was pretty secular in nature up until I got to a point where my faith was growing and realized that everything that we do, whether you call it a resolution or goal planning process, it needs to start with what does God have in mind for my life. And using Rick Warren's book, Purpose Driven Life, was a great resource. I know that we did a church study on that several years ago. May have even been before we got here.
Hold it up again. She wants to get on your close-up over there. Put it on your camera.
But that's a great resource, because whether we want to realize it or not, God has a plan for all of us. He's created a purpose for us. And even when we feel insignificant and like we can't contribute in some meaningful way, God's already figured out a way for us to be contributing significantly, being his hands and feet. So that's a great resource that walks us through. He basically walks us through the God's great commission and great commandment: love God, love your neighbor, make disciples, baptize people into God's family, and to teach them. So there's some form or fashion of how we can be his hands and feet in those initiatives. Once you've done that, then you can drill down into what fits your temperament, your priorities, And
Right. You have your spiritual gifts, so then how can you lend them in your life, in your walk, at your work, at your church, in your community?
Right. And I break my goal planning process into 7 categories: body, mind, soul, career, finance, family, and community, and come up with long-term, mid-range, and short-term goals for each of those categories.
Do me a favor. Say that again slower, because I think that could be really helpful to a lot of people out there.
Okay. Well, all right.
Can you remember?
Well, so even before that, I start with identifying what my core values are, what major roles I play as a person. You know, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business professional, I'm a member of the community, I'm a volunteer, and then I come up with a personal mission statement that resonates with those roles and core values, and those things should be, for the most part, unchanging from year to year. And then from there, drill it down into Stephen Covey's suggestion is begin with the end in mind. So you start with your long-range goals, and that can be 10 plus years out. Then come up with some mid-range goals, which are 3 to 5 years out, and should, for the most part, be stepping stones to reaching your long-term goals. And then I do short-term goals, which are pretty much 12 months, the coming calendar year, and they should be stepping stones to your mid-range goals. And then so for each of those categories, I come up with goals for body, mind, soul or faith, career, finance, family, and community.
I think that's a really neat way of breaking it down. Full disclosure, Greg told us this ahead of time. He gave us, I asked him to send us send me an email with some of his notes, and I read that. I was like, that's just great. I want to make sure we got that out, because a lot of what I think people could be struggling this time of year, it's like, okay, well, Terri and I talked about, well, we want to do something for the church. Okay, that's good. But how do you actually break that down and make wise decisions? And I think maybe that's the problem. A lot of people, when they're making New Year's resolutions, they do so impulsively. Yeah.
Right.
And so they jump into something, and that's why they don't stick to it.
The other thing that helps is, companies talk about this from a strategic planning standpoint. Once you create your plan, it can't just sit on the shelf. So then I drill it down into looking at that list of short-term goals on a regular basis, whether that's daily or weekly or monthly, whatever fits in for you personally. And then come up with tasks that are stepping stones to help you accomplish your 12-month goals. And you just filter that in with your other stuff. Pick up the dry cleaning, go grocery shopping. If one of my goals is to read 12 books from cover to cover this year, then one of the tasks this week might be finish 2 chapters and just get it as granular as possible. And it's how do you eat that elephant one bite at a time?
And that's just it, though. You've planned for it. You've committed to your resolution, your goal, and you're making a plan for it. I think people often look at resolutions as a wish list. And wish lists are just that. When you look at it, it looks nice, and then you kind of forget about it. And in life, we have things that we must do. You might think we must work, we must make an income, must take care of our families. And then in life, we have things that we should. And as people, we always get our musts done. We don't always get our shoulds done. So by making a goal, making a plan, then things like serving or whatever your resolution might be becomes more of a must. And when you have it written down, then it becomes a focus. And I think the big thing is committing to it. Otherwise, it's nothing but a wish. And it's like when you buy a car, okay? You decide all of a sudden you need a car, you go to the dealership, you never really thought about this car, but it's cool, it has everything you need. You bought the car. So now you drive it off the lot, you see that car everywhere.
Yep.
Where you never saw it before, right?
Yep.
You thought you bought this unique, one-of-a-kind vehicle until you get out on the road, and then you see it everywhere, and that's because your focus has changed. And that's the same thing with resolutions and with goals. So breaking it down and then making it part of your steps. When it's a new habit, sometimes it takes a little extra time and a few extra steps to make it routine. When I was in direct sales, they're always dingling trips and things like that in front of you. And I had earned some things, but there was this diamond tennis bracelet that when I had started seemed so far out. And here I found myself, I'm actually lined up to do this. So I wore a candy bracelet. I did.
Constant reminder.
Yes, constant reminder.
Like AO1, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's why I liked that. So depending on what your resolution is, there's got to be a way besides little notes in your drawers and on your fridge and put it on your to-do list, make sure it's, and I know that we've talked about this earlier, but when you have these goals and you have your daily list, you have to revisit this to keep your end in mind as you're, planning your months, your years, into your goals. So.
Well, believe it or not, we're already out of time. Matter of fact, I think we're over. But that's good, because the goal of this episode wasn't to tell you out there, this is what you should be resolving to do.
Right.
I really wanted to kind of give people a framework for how to go about deciding.
The tools.
The tools, to help decide that for themselves, and maybe making it more of a priority for towards giving it as a present for Jesus and making that your focus. Obviously, one thing that I don't think we've mentioned here explicitly that is going to be inherent in all of this is to take a moment and pray about it. Certainly, I think what I find lots of times is when I have something that I decide I want to do. For those who don't know, I'm actually starting seminary classes next week. I'm going to be pursuing a Master of Arts in Christian Apologetics through Luther Rice Seminary. I'm very, very excited about it. The opportunity came to me where financially it wasn't feasible before, and it now was. Of course, what you want to do when you first see this, because this is something I've been wanting to do for some time, it's like, sign me up today, and then I start thinking about it. So wait a minute, but I've got this going on, and I got this going on, and other things. It's like, so first you take some time to reflect upon it. That's why I really like the methodology that you're proposing here. And then when you think you have that boiled down and you have a sense of direction of what you want to do, then take a moment and pray about it. And seek God and open up God's Word and see what that says about it and everything like that. And I think if you do all this together, it's going to help you guide you into the direction you should be going.
Last thing I'll mention is it's also helpful to have an accountability partner, whether it's your spouse or someone from your small group or just a member of the congregation, to just do regular check-ins with each other. How you doing? Do you need any resources? And just hold each other accountable. If anybody out there needs one, I'm happy to be your accountability partner.
Somebody
I'm
that
serious.
appreciates your vision,
Yeah.
because it might not be your best friend. It might not be, you know what I mean? So pick
Absolutely.
and choose who your partner is going to be.
That will support what you're trying to do.
Choose wisely. Yeah. So, okay, my wife's okay, I don't get that mime. What's that supposed to be? Look at a book. Oh, that book.
It's another book that we started using. I just read it last week, and it's another way to help you to get in the right frame of mind. And it's basically identifying one particular word that will be your theme for the year.
Right. And that helps you keep your focus. That helps you keep on task. And what I like about this, Marylanders wrote this. People who are involved in ministry wrote this. And they talk about your relationship with God, look within, and then serve out. And that's our church's
What is
mission.
the name of the book? You're holding it up.
I'm sorry. One word that will change your life.
Okay.
It's a short read. We talked about it, a day and a half, and that's if you read it in between your life. But it's a nice book. It's a really nice book.
Well, you know what? I don't mind the fact that this episode ran over. I will, once I get back into the routine, I'm doing these every week, then I might mind. But I haven't done one of these shows for a month. So I'm cool with this. I'm excited to be here. Yep. It'll all wear off soon enough. But for right now, I'm excited to be here. So thank you very much for tuning in. We are thrilled to be back. If you like this episode, please do us a favor. Go ahead and click the like button. That's a thumbs up button right here on the YouTube page. The more likes we get, the more comments we get, the more it helps us get this distributed to other people. So please don't do that. My wife's back there saying, I know, every week, this is what he does. He does the same spiel. Okay. Anyway, do me a favor. Go ahead and like it, comment on it. That helps us get distributed to more people. And we'd like to hear from you as well. Share this video on whatever your social media platform of choice is. Trinity Talk Live does have its own Facebook page. We are at Trinity Talk Live Podcast on Facebook. Please go ahead and give us a like there. We do use that to give announcements about what we have coming up in future episodes, and it gives you another opportunity to give feedback to us. We've had people use that Facebook page idea before to give us ideas for what they'd like to see on future episodes, and we have done that before. We did one on Can Christians Have Fun a while ago. That was a response to somebody on Facebook. We had somebody on our YouTube page did ask us to do an episode about social media and whether or not we should be using social media and the advantages and pros and cons of using social media. We are doing that episode coming up next month. So we do listen and we do try to work something. We can't get every episode to work, but we do try to work it out so we're putting on the air what you want to hear about. We will not have an episode next week. Normally we film these things on Monday. Next Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So our offices are closed here, so we're not going to be filming an episode then. We will be back, though, in 2 weeks with a very special 2-week series. And I know we're already running late, but I want to slow down for a second to make sure we emphasize this. First of all, in 2 weeks, we are going to be joined here by our lay minister, Ben Lander, who a lot of you know if you're regular watchers of the show. He's been on a number of times. He just did our first Trinity Talk devotions episode, so if you haven't watched that, I'm going to push that one more time. Also, we've got a guest coming from, I believe all the way from California, if I'm remembering correctly, Clinton Wilcox. Clinton Wilcox is a Christian apologist like myself, but better than me. And he's with the Life Training Institute, or has been. I'm not sure if he's still there. We'll find out when he gets here. The topic for 2 weeks from now is going to be how do we talk about abortion. We're doing a 2-week series on abortion. We want to start out with the first week, just again, how do you have the conversation about it? Again, in a graceful manner, what are some of the facts you need to know about it, and how do you engage in that discussion? Because it seems lots of times when you get into these hot button items, it's impossible to have a conversation with a lot of people without it becoming heated. So you want to strike a balance between, you want to be true to God's word and God's message, but you want to also be true to God's grace. And so how do you do that? And we're going to be talking about that in 2 weeks. And then 3 weeks, 3 weeks from now, on our second episode on the abortion series is going to be highlighting an aspect of it that I think often gets overlooked. And for lack of a better term, I'm calling that the ministry aspect of it. We are going to be joined by Stacy Golden, who's with a ministry called Project Rachel, and Carol Maglove, who's from a ministry called Birthright. And what that episode is going to be about is specifically about ministering to women who are either considering an abortion or who have had an abortion. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be, again, a lot of it's going to be post-abortion ministry, because a lot of people, neglect the fact that there are some needs that people, especially those that have had it and maybe are having difficulty coming to terms with it, there are Christian ministries out there that help serve them. And so I want to make sure that we're not just talking about the theoretical angle of abortion, like so many resources out there do. We're talking about the human angle of it as well. And so that's what, please make sure you join us for those 2 episodes. Start sharing our channel now so you can tell people that these things are coming up, okay? Again, I would like to say a very special thank you. My voice is going. That's my cue to sign off here, right? Thank you very much to Greg for joining us again. Thank you very much to Terri for joining us again. And thank you very much for joining us again. God bless you. See you next week. God bless.
In your word we will follow.